Okay, so day one of making everything. If I sound sick, it's because I am sick. I don't know why, but I've developed like a summer wintry cold. I don't even know. It's about to go into summer, but either way, today's the first day of me making my Cinderella dress. So I'm going to show you my plan. So, these are my fabrics. I have two large chunks of fabric and they may look very, very similar, but this one's actually a bit darker than this one is. And I will put a picture up so you can actually see what I mean. The one on the left is going to be the lining of the dress, the inside, all that stuff. And then the one on the right is going to be the outside of the dress. And so my goal for this, I'm planning on using the top of this McCall pattern right here, which is very, very beautiful, and I really love the style of it, which is the closest to what I wanted, because I want the dress to kind of reminisce not only the Cinderella movies that Disney made, but also the time period, the 1600s, when the book that the movies are based off were made. So I'm going to be planning on doing the top of this one, but then I'm tossing up between these two patterns I have. This is actually a Cinderella pattern and a Princess Peach pattern for the bottom of the dress. The Cinderella pattern is far too big for me, so it'll have more fabric, but I just need to figure out which one I want to do. But first things first is that I'm going to cut the fabric out so that I can start putting together the outside of the dress. So let's do that. So the first thing I did, which is always the first thing you do, is I laid out all my fabric to the best of my abilities. I was working in a very small space. I then grabbed the pattern pieces that I needed for the bodice and followed the instructions before pinning them down onto the fabric themselves. I didn't know what this pattern was going to be like, so that's why I had the instructions. Otherwise, I probably would have been fine without them. And then once it was all pinned down and I had enough fabric and wiggle room, I got the scissors and cut them out. Okay, so what I've just done is basically put down the first three pieces of the dress. So if we look at it, they all had to be in an interesting position. I got a bit confused with this one, but then I was looking at all the instructions and it doesn't look like it's actually attached, so I don't know why it says on fold line. That's like new, but basically what I'm gonna have to do now is cut these three out. I have all the other patterns for this part of the dress over here that I need to cut out, but these are the ones, at least for this. So I'm going to cut these out now, and then I'm going to put them on the mannequin. Okay, so I've cut out the bodice pieces. This is what it currently looks like. I'm still figuring out the layout and everything, but I'm pretty happy with how the front looks, at least. So next thing I'm going to do is take it off the mannequin and put it on the floor to really actually stick it together, and then also make sure it actually fits, because that would be kind of sad if it doesn't. But yes, so first part cut out, done. Okay, so firstly I apologize if the lighting changes and is now really gross. I had to turn the lights on because it's getting a little bit dark outside, as you can see. But I just want to show you a little problem I encountered. Thankfully it's fixable, and I just haven't worked with this pattern before, so I didn't know, but I'll turn you around. So I was looking, I laid everything out. Basically, it's now off the mannequin and it's now on the floor, because I'm about to attach all the sides together of each piece. And I'm looking at this and I was a bit concerned by this weird shape. I've never seen that before. I don't know what it is. And so I got out the pattern instructions, because these patterns always come with instructions. And thankfully there is an actual indent of that shape in the pattern right, where's my finger? Right there. So it is normal, which is great, because I was worried that I had cut it out incorrectly. So I'm going to pin all the sides together, wrong ways as always, but what's helpful is that I've noticed that with this fabric, it has a matte side and a shiny side, so it's going to be very, very easy for me to figure out which side is which and if it's wrong or right. So let's get to pinning, and then I'll put it back on the mannequin and show you guys. And so with all the fabric lying out in front of me, I used it as a guide to make sure everything was in the right position, and then I grabbed the fabric and started pinning all the pieces together with the pins facing me, which would be on the inside of the dress, and the pins making sure they weren't on the outside of the dress, so I can get a good idea of what it looks like. I then realized that I need to put burning holes in, and so I had to unpin everything and pin and sew these light blue strips of fabric which are going to hold the boning, because I need boning in this dress for when I'm running around. So there's a fly in here and it's bugging me, but either way, I have cut out the pieces of the lining of the corset because that's done. The front of the corset's done, and so this is the inside where everything is going to be. And so on the inside I've got these blue strips of fabric which I need to sew, and so I'm going to sew all the way down here and all the way back up, making sure they fit where they have to fit. And then I'm going to put this lovely piece of boning in, like put it in. Well, I have to light this on fire, which I didn't think I'd ever have to do, but I have to. Is that a fly or a bee? Oh my god, that's a bee. I'm gonna let the bee out. One sec. Oh dear. Oh dearie, dearie, dear. Ooh. Okay, I've got stuff flying all over the place, and sadly the bee, it's definitely a bee, is not flying out. So that's scary. Either way, I'm back to. So if you hear things like falling on the ground and stuff, that's just because the door is open. But yeah, I'm going to burn the top of the boning, because that's what you have to do, because this is a plastic polyester boning. I'm going to burn it so that it doesn't break through the fabric, and then I'm going to slide it into the little columns that I've made, and then I'll have boning on the inside of my dress, which will make it very, very easy and much more better to wear. So let's get to that. I ended up using this green marker to mark on the actual plastic boning itself how long each strip would have to be for the particular parts of the bodice, but either way, after marking where it needs to be cut, I then grabbed my scissors and cut the boning before taking it outside and getting help from my dad to actually melt the very tops of the boning so that it doesn't actually pierce the fabric, or myself. That would be disastrous. And I repeated this process with every single piece of boning I had to have. And so once we had finished burning all the ends of the boning, I brought them back inside and began feeding them into the panels I had created for them. And once that was all done, I began putting the bodice together itself before moving on to the skirt. And so creating the skirt was actually the same process as creating the bodice. I laid the fabric out, and then I got the pattern and laid the pattern out, and then I pinned the pattern down to make sure I wouldn't move using my phone and other heavy things just to be extra sure. And then I got my scissors and cut everything out before sewing all the pieces together to create one massive piece of fabric. I then decided to divert from the pattern process and actually created a little belt strap that I'm going to use at the very, very top, because I'm going to be making the dress a two-piece so that I don't have the bodice attached to the skirt all the time. And so I made this little strip of fabric, and then I attached with pins the dress to the strip of fabric using a pleating technique so that I can create a beautiful effect of having pleats at the top that would then cascade down and create a bit more character to the skirt itself. I unpicked every single pleat I did on the skirt because I realized it would have been far too messy if I didn't hem it first, and so I've just finished hemming the skirt on the top, and I was about to start like repleating it and redoing it all, but I've decided instead to not do that. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to cut out the poofy things on the sides of like the Cinderella dress in the original animation. She has these like little poofy things on her hips. And so I found this beautiful fabric at Spotlight, which is like where I'm getting all my fabric from. And it's gorgeous and it sparkles and it's got butterflies on it, which is very like reminiscent of the live action because that had butterflies on the dress, so I thought it was absolutely gorgeous. So I'm gonna use my pattern from my Cinderella dress, which is over here. Come on. So I'm going to use this pattern to cut this out, and the good thing is that the butterflies are sewn on, so I can rearrange the positioning of the butterflies if I wanted to, but I'm going to get onto that. And then once I've finished the poof, this is the poof. We're calling it the poof now. Once I finish the poof, once it's cut out and everything, then I'm going to pleat the skirt and hopefully finish the top of the skirt today. That is my goal. So let's try and finish that. And so once again, I laid the fabric out and then I laid the pattern on top, pinned the pattern onto the fabric, which was a bit more challenging because this fabric was very, very, very thin. And then after that, I folded the fabric over the top of the original pattern and cut out a second circle so that I could have two in quick succession. And then I sewed the skirt together and then sewed these onto the skirt, which took a lot of time and a lot of positioning, and even now it's still not perfect, so I'm probably going to go back and fix it, but I forgot to film all of that. So now we're going to move on to actually decorating the dress. When adding on the decorative gold trim, I actually had to sew it on by hand because I already had so much crammed into the spots. I also forgot to film that I put these holes, metal hole things for the corset back in the dress. That's also there. But either way, I had to hand sew all the details on individually by hand just because I didn't want to break any of my machine needles. And so this took a very, very long time, but there were multiple different designs that I wanted to add onto the dress. And at the end of the day, I think it turned out beautiful. Okay. Here is the dress. Here she is in all her glory. It's been a few days since I last checked in with you guys. But yeah, so here she is all laced up, I guess you could say. All of these beautiful trims. I had to hand sew this trim onto this one just because it's a very thin fabric and I wasn't sure how it was going to work. I had to hand sew this trim on and this trim on. And now she doesn't have any pins holding her up because she has the lace back all done up. And so now is the final touches for this dress. There have been quite a few alterations. The sleeves are different. The silver design at the bottom, I decided to completely get rid of that. It just looked too much and it made it think more of a evil stepsister type of dress than Cinderella's dress. Because I wanted it to be more neat, if that makes sense. And so we decided to just go with this trim down the bottom here. This teeny, tiny little trim, which is a very, very simple, very, 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 very simple gold trim. So that's just going to be at the bottom instead of all of this fabric, which is gorgeous. The designs on this fabric are beautiful. I'm just gonna have to wait for another project, which sucks, but it's gonna have to be what we have to do, to be honest. So, whoop, there we go. So now I am finishing up two more things. One more thing for the dress. This is the last thing for the dress. I have all of these sparkles. I have a lot of sparkles here with me. Look at all these lovely sparkles. All of these sparkles, especially these teeny, teeny, tiny ones. These are absolutely tiny. I'm planning on, if I put you here, there are these little butterflies on the dress. These lovely, beautiful butterflies. And so I'm thinking of just putting the sparkle in the center of each butterfly. And so that was also going to take a while. And to achieve this, I'm going to be using this. I don't know what this is. My dad gave it to me. It's it's epoxy adhesive. There we go. It's epoxy adhesive. So I'm going to be using that to attach them to the dress because this is the dress I'm going to be running in when I'm running away from the ball as Cinderella and everything. And so It's kind of important that the sparkles stay on. I don't want to litter any glitter or any sparkles on the venue, especially since it's such a beautiful place that we're going to be in. And so I'm going to set you up. I'm going to prepare myself. I'm going to put you guys here, and I'm going to get to work on putting the final finishing touches on this dress. And so I used my dad's epoxy resin to attach the sparkles onto each butterfly. This took a very, very long time. I would use the back of a very, very long wooden stick to mix the epoxy resin together, and then I would use those mixed resin to dollop onto the back of each diamond using the stick. And then I would use my fingers to hold the diamond and place it onto the butterfly. Looking back now, I probably should have had the door open for ventilation, and I probably should have been wearing gloves, because I'm pretty sure epoxy resin is kind of toxic. So don't do what I do in that situation. But at the end of the day, it was totally worth it, and I didn't hurt myself, which is the best part of it all. But it looks stunning, and they added an extra sparkle to the whole dress, which I thought it definitely needed. Okay, there we go. So, like I said in the beginning, here are the shoes as they are. Ignore the fuzzies. We decided to try and expand the back of the heels by having these little dice fuzzes in there. So first thing I'm gonna have to do is take off these little butterfly clips, because these are based off more of the live action shoes, whereas I want them to be based off more of the 1950 animation that Disney did. So first things first, how can we take this off? Oh, I see. Okay. Just gonna slowly pull at it. Maybe I need some scissors. Let's try some scissors. I have a whole collection of scissors behind there. So they're attached by these very thin plastic things on either side. So I'm just going to firstly cut right down there. And I'm going to cut exactly where it all was, right up against the shoe. Okay, one butterfly is off. I'm going to repurpose this on something else. And so now it just looks like this, just a normal empty shoe. I'm going to clean it up just a little bit, and then we will do the next part. So, decoration-wise, for these shoes, I have found these really, really beautiful little crystals, which are so reflective and gorgeous and very, very dreamy. I got these from a craft store in Australia called Spotlight. I got 2 of them, one for each shoe, and I also got a bunch of these crystal gems that I'm also going to use to decorate around the shoe as well. So let's see how this works out. I'm a little nervous they're going to not look as nice, but we shall see what happens. I'm going to put all of this out on this little paint tray, the little acrylic paint trays that you use, just so I can divide everything up and make it easier for when I'm applying them on. Okay, so the butterfly is off, but it's left some scarring on the shoes, and so we're going to brainstorm how to fix that. But I did just try the shoe on, and one problem that I've had, even though this is my shoe size, when I bought this, it was my shoe size, I measured it and everything, it's meant to fit my foot perfectly. It's too tight on this part of the shoe. And so, I'm gonna take my scissors, and this is so scary, I'm just gonna cut really gently down the middle, and hopefully it won't hate me if I do that. And you'll be able to see if I have another camera set up. Hello, my phone. So I'm going to take the shoe. I'm just going to cut it in the center, if it would like to cut. Nope. Come on. Okay, we have traction. Okay, there we go. So hopefully this will help my foot breathe a little bit. So I'm just going to cut these. I'm going to cut this. Hello camera. I'm going to cut these a little bit and keep trying them on my feet to see if they fit until I get to a comfortable position, and then we'll move on to the next step. So I actually had to end up scrapping the idea of me ever actually wearing the Cinderella shoes during the music video, because no matter what I did, there was no way to make it comfortable for me to wear, and I was not going to be running in pain. And so I actually just chucked that idea, and there was a good portion where I just full on thought, maybe I just can't make a Cinderella shoe in time, maybe I have to figure something out. But I persisted and ended up just deciding to decorate the shoe to create a design that can hide the cuts I had made into the shoe itself, and to make it look like its own original shoe, so it doesn't look anything like the shoe from the live action, it doesn't look anything like the shoe from the 1950 movie. It's my own design, which I think is a nice little thing to make it more personal to me. But yes, I decided to move on with the very long and tedious process of putting all the sparkles on the shoe on the design. I used the epoxy resin again, still not using gloves at all, but I decided to put them all along the very top of the shoe where the silver trim is, to hide the silver trim and to hide any cuts I had made. And it was a long process, a fun one, but a long one. So, it's the day before, and here is the finished shoe. This is what I ended up going with. It might look a bit basic and a bit simple, but like, I don't have time to do anything else, so hopefully this works. I did try and stick the heart crystals I wanted on, but for some reason they must have been just like too heavy to just not stick on the project. So the only problem now is to get rid of this logo on the shoe base. So I've taken some cotton Q-tips that I had lying around, and I'm going to try and use some nail polish remover to see if we can get rid of them. I'm going to use a very, very small amount at first and do a very, very small amount on the shoe just to test the waters and see if it comes off. Fingers crossed that it does. I don't know. I'm scared. After a lot of elbow grease, I was really, really happy when the logo did come off using just the nail polish remover. So happy I was able to find a very quick and easy way to resolve that problem, because I completely missed that problem in the process of planning, but problem fixed, everything was great. And somehow I had completed my task of making not only a Cinderella shoe for my music video, but also my own dress that was completely original to my own design. So let's move on to the final result. And that is how I created my dress for the Cinderella music video, as well as the Cinderella shoe. There was definitely some ups and downs throughout this project, times where I wanted to just quit entirely, but I pushed through and I definitely think it was worth it. If you haven't already seen the music video, there's a link for it down in the description box below, as well as a link to the behind the scenes to see how we made the entire project. I'd love to know what you guys think of it all, and I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did. If you want to see more, don't be afraid to click the notification and subscribe buttons to see more from me, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye guys!